Manoj Karkee from Washington State.
Dr. Manoj.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Said,
thank you.
nice to see you.
Thank you very much in this time that you have agreed to make this presentation.
My pleasure.
Dr. Indramani is here. I think he will also join now. He's already there. Dr. Indramani is there.
I see him there, yeah. How are things in India?
This is all lockdown. We are all sitting in room.
Totally, yeah.
At home only, all of us. It's very difficult to organize something like this sitting at home, but we have a good team of people.
Great. Yeah. Same here. I've been in the home for last 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks now.
Okay. Here we are 4 plus, yeah, we are also around 7 weeks.
Oh, okay. Maybe we started about the same time. Yeah. So I see that share option there. So would you like me to share the slides?
Yeah, he will. We'll start. Actually, 6 o'clock we'll start. So still time is there.
Sure. So I see that share option there. So would you like to share the slides?
Yeah, he will. Still time is there.
I see that share option there. So So looks like screen sharing has been disabled. Is there any way I could be?
You can get share. Yes, you will be allowed. That we already discussed.
Okay.
We'll allow you.
Okay. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Manoj, I think sharing is enabled for you. Can you check it?
Okay, I'll try that now.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it has been allowed. So when we are ready, I can share.
The problem here was the security. When we allow panelists, they all started playing. And there are some regulations, so that we are strict on allow unless the person knows how to operate it.
Sure.
It's risky. Yeah. Somebody will damage some other computer. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Indramani, I think.
Thank you.
Oh, we normally, Dr. Manoj, we talk about till 6 o'clock, till the other participants come. We can talk freely like this. It's recorded. It's also being seen by others. It's live on Facebook. So that's the only thing we have to consider while talking. Otherwise, this is only a question of fellowship. We can talk to each other. Then
Sure.
6 o'clock we will start. Yeah, please. Dr. Indramani.
How are you,
Manoj is-
Manoj?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
I'm very good. Welcome to this program.
Thank you very much.
Uh,
Pleasure to be here.
for your information, this year we signed an MOU with Nepalese Society of Agriculture Engineers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In December, I visited Kathmandu on the invitation of Nepalese Society of Agriculture Engineers. So we had, I visited your alma mater, Tribhuvan University also.
Yeah, great. Wow. Thank you.
And
You know that university then.
yeah. Yes. And then a delegation led by your president, the Nepalese Society of Agriculture Engineers, came to Pune, and
Oh, wow.
there we signed an MOU
Oh, wow.
with Nepalese Society to work together, and we have dreamed that one ISA convention should be organized in Kathmandu.
Great. That would be great. I'd love to attend that one.
So that's how Nepal and India, as such, we are very close friends, and
Sure. Yeah.
so through Agri Engineering Societies also we tried that we should work together, and it
Great
was
initiative.
very
Congratulations
lovely
on
and
that.
overwhelming response when I visited there. Although I was for 2 days only, but it was a wonderful visit, and they came here, and now we are planning that how to go forward and have any program. So it is nice. I was just talking to Dr. Soni from IIT Kharagpur, and he told that you are his classmate.
Yeah, we were together at AIT for a little bit of time. Yeah.
Exactly. So he will join, and to
Great.
listen your lecture, and we are really very much pleased and happy that you spare time, and
No. It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you everybody for inviting, including I see Dr. Murthy there.
Oh, Manoj, how are you?
Very good. Yeah. Thank you for reaching out and inviting
No
me
worries,
to
no worries.
present in this wonderful gathering.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Mani, just for information, I think I'm also a life member of ISAE. I
great.
believe since about 2 years.
Okay, great. Yeah. Professor Singh will join, and Professor Singh has been instrumental in making, bringing all international friends, and particularly IITians.
Yes, come. Yes, he's joined us.
ISAE.
Yeah, I see Dr. Singh there already.
Yeah.
Yes. Good morning, Manoj.
Good morning, sir.
Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, Sayed.
Namaskar.
कागल यूको नीचे में नापे देखो लो ओसी को
We will start in a minute.
Yeah.
Just give us a minute, please.
Fine. Mhm.
Good morning to the people who are from USA, and good evening for the Indian viewers.
Good evening.
I welcome all of you for the fourth webinar today. First, I'd like to thank all of you who are all instrumental in making this particular webinar happen in difficult times. I have a short explanation to make regarding these last 3 webinars, what we have done, a slight review. There were a lot of emails have come to us, to me also, asking for a lot of responses. Unfortunately, we could not concentrate that right now because we are also trying our hard to manage the rest of the webinars, contacting presenters, everything. We will shortly look into that. Second is we stopped yesterday the training actually because we took this reason because of the interesting topics were there. But I think today we will have the training session. And regarding the question and answer session, yesterday was a lot of questions were there. I could not allow it because we are already past the time. So today I would request the speakers to keep their time. We have given the timings to them around 20-25 minutes. You have to complete it. We will have discussion about 10 minutes. So everybody would like to communicate and talk. This webinar is to create basically the interest in the engineers to come into the technology fold. So I think speakers can do within the time, if possible, would be very great. So we can cover all of them, question and answer, because that is going to be the important part, question and answers. The youngsters will learn. At least we can take about 5 questions per speaker would have been good. Next is the feedback. I have received only 4 feedbacks. We are given a feedback. I think people send me personally a lot of questions afterwards in WhatsApp and everything. I would request them please to put on the feedback form. Click and enter in the feedback form. Till now, four responses we got only. In that we find people want to have live streaming, video streaming, and otherwise they are very happy. But I would like to remind those people this live streaming is difficult with this type of webinar, and especially with the bandwidth what we are getting in India to get a continuous bandwidth. So the idea is not a research paper we are presenting here. The idea is to make the interest first, the youngsters to learn technology, what is new available, and the managers today or the scientists to start really planning their research in a productive way. That is the objective. So we are doing it. And I would like now to hand over to Dr. Indramani to introduce the speaker.
Thank you, Sayed. Professor Singh and friends, welcome to the 4th day of webinar. We have a very important speaker today, Manoj Karkee. Manoj was born in eastern hills of Nepal, and he has, if you see his education, very varied. He did diploma in civil engineering, followed by BTech in computer engineering from Tribhuvan University, Nepal. Then he did masters from AIT, that was in remote sensing and GIS, followed by his PhD in agriculture engineering and human computer interaction from Iowa State University. So you can see the range, as an engineer he covered. He leads a strong research program on sensing and machine vision and agricultural robotics in Washington State University, where he served as an associate professor. And that center he leads, and that center's name is Precision and Automated Agriculture. He has large number of publications in general of field robotics, computer and electronics in agricultural engineering, transaction of Asabe. And he is currently serving as elected chair for International Federation of Automation and Control. and Associate Editor of Journal of American Society of Agriculture, Transaction of American Society of Agriculture and Biological Engineers. He has been basically awarded, of late he has been awarded, and I would like to just mention that one. Dr. Karkee basically, he is guest editor for Census and editorial. He is in editorial committee and member of information processing in agriculture. Dr. Karkee was recognized in 2019 as pioneer in artificial intelligence and IoT. It's a big recognition, and by Connected World magazine, and was featured as the Western Innovator by Capital Press. Friends, this is why I'm mentioning all this, that his connectivity and his expertise may be used by fellow engineers whenever his area of expertise, then kind of person we are getting for this webinar. So a warm welcome, Dr. Manoj Karkee, and now floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mani and Dr. Ismail, for your introduction, and thank you everybody for giving me this opportunity to present and share some of the work we've been doing here at Washington State University. And depending upon how much time we'll have, I'll also try to introduce a few of my thoughts in terms of where we might be going in the future. Again, thank you everybody for being here. Let me try to share my screen and we'll go from there. Give me one quick second. I'm trying to do it here. Do you see my slides?
Yes, go ahead, please. Blank screen, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll start with these two pictures and give everybody a couple of seconds to kind of visualize them. So again, I'll be talking a little bit about artificial intelligence, cyber physical systems, and robotics as it applies to agriculture, in particular in specialty crop agriculture. When we say specialty crop, we at least defined by the United States Department of Agriculture, it includes fruit crops, vegetable crops, nuts, and some horticultural, some nursery crops such as flowers and things like that. And again, towards the end, I'll be talking a little bit about where we might be going in the future, depending upon again how much time we would have. But I'll try to keep it within 25-30 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. First, I wanted to spend a minute or so talking about where we are located in the United States. Sometimes when I talk in international seminars like this, Washington DC and Washington State have been misrecognized. So I just wanted to point out that we are in the Pacific Northwest region of Washington, United States. Washington is the state that's right next to the British Columbia of Canada. It's just above Oregon, as you can see, in the Pacific coast. Our Center for Precision and Automated Agricultural Systems is located at the south central part of the state, which is strategically located there because all the specialty crops we work with are around us. We have many different commercially valuable crops, economically valuable crops for the state of Washington, including apples, cherries, wine grapes. And it also produces a lot of dry land, dryland wheat, as well as vegetable crops such as potatoes. So now talking about automation and mechanization, as many of you know, agricultural mechanization was recognized as one of the most important engineering achievements of 20th century. I think it was number 7 among 100 recognized. That's because over the last century, or a bit longer than that, we have developed a lot of mechanization solutions for farming that has revolutionized how we do farming. In the United States, for example, farming population went down from about 90% to less than 2% involved in farming. Still producing a lot of agricultural products which have been exported around the world, again, through this involvement of just 1% or so of US population. The machines like these, large tillage machines, large planters, boom sprayers for row crops like corn, soybean, wheat, harvesters like these, combine harvesters for corn and wheat and soybean, sugarcane harvesters like these, guidance and auto steering systems, such as the one we can see here, have been widely adopted around the world in recent decades. However, the benefit of all these mechanized or automated solutions have been to mostly annual row crops, such as corn and soybean. We still are lacking to utilize the benefit of these kinds of advancements in crops like apples, particularly what we call specialty crops. We started with these two pictures. As we can see, these two pictures were captured some 80 years apart, but in the basics, they are the same. We're using a ladder, there are manual pickers, using a bag goes on their front, and they climb up and down the ladders, pick apples, and bring a heavy load of apples up and down these ladders and empty on a container and repeat that process. For that matter, ever since we started, or we knew how to build these little ladders, perhaps the way we harvest apples, for that matter, we harvest many different kinds of fruit crops and vegetable crops have not changed. And I think with all the advancement in artificial intelligence, parallel computing techniques such as graphical processing units, with advanced sensing data analytics techniques, and advanced robotic techniques, I believe we deserve better than how we are doing these kinds of operations in specialty crops. There has been long research and development in this area. Not to say that we just started a decade ago, or I started working in this area. There has been long efforts going on around the world. However, limited commercial success. There are a few aspects why we have not been able to commercially adopt these technologies. To list a few major ones: speed, accuracy, and robustness, or their lack of those qualities, have made it difficult for any automated or robotic machine to be used in practically used in these crops. For example, there has been a lot of efforts in robotic picking. I'll talk about that quite a bit in this presentation. We're still lacking some of these aspects to make it viable. Produce plant damage. For some of the technologies, particularly mass harvesting techniques such as sacking and catching fruit, we either damage plant or damage fruit and cause a lot of cause those damages outside of the acceptable range. And cost, lack of adoption. There is this cycle of starting with high cost of technology and that kind of limits farmers' ability to adopt them. And then limited adoption makes the economy of scale unfavorable for reduced cost production, and this cycle is difficult to break because of, again, the complexity of the machines, as well as sometimes a specialized need for these kinds of crops. And then also, to some extent, limited volume of these crops that are produced around the world. So WCC PASS program on agricultural robotics has been focusing on a few of these aspects, including crop harvesting, fruit crop harvesting to be specific. We have been working on addressing some of the challenges around speed, accuracy, and robustness through both mass and robotic harvesting technologies, different types of end effectors. When I say end effectors, that's the hand part of the robotic system, different catching mechanisms. When we're talking about mass harvesting or second catch harvesting mechanisms, we are investigating many different mechanisms to do that, and with different robotic system, meaning we are integrating sensing, manipulation, end effector, and many other associated components into various robotic systems to evaluate them in lab and field environment for apple and cherry harvesting particularly. Starting with automated cherry harvesting, we've been using a relatively big machine that has slanted capturing frames go from both sides of the trees, and shaker is actuated to go grab the branches or trunks and shake cherries gently and catch those fruit underneath. And we're also trying to aid a machine vision system, imaging system, and image processing system, to be specific, that would take or capture images both in daytime and nighttime. And the image processing system we have developed would automatically identify the trajectory of these branches, even when they are almost fully covered by leaves and fruit. We are still able to predict their trajectories, which then allows us to have an automated machine to go grab these branches and shake them. Robotic harvesting has been another big area for us. Over the past almost 7 years or so, we have been working in automated robotic apple picking. What we are seeing now in the video is the robotic manipulator and end effector system that, and machine vision system that that is used to identify and look at apples that have been developed. Those technologies have been developed under my program at Washington State University. And starting about 2 or 3 years ago, we started collaborating with a company out of Israel called FF Robotics. And through this collaboration, we have developed a full-scale machine, as we can see on our right. This machine has 12 arms. They operate in parallel, supported by our machine vision system. Repeating it here. And we have been testing this machine in Israel and Washington State, right close to where I'm located, and is showing a lot of promise for commercial adoption in recent future. A few issues we have been certainly still facing with this robotic system. One of those is robot canopy collision, meaning robotic hands are sometimes hitting branches and trellis wires. Sometimes there are fruit behind the trunk of the tree and things like that. And there is also some issue with how we detach this fruit. Sometimes we are bringing a little branch with the fruit, and other times we are not picking this fruit with the stem on them. So we are trying to improve our image processing system to identify branches and trellis wires more accurately. And we are also trying to add what is called the orientation of these fruit into the vision system capabilities, and we will be using those into making decisions in terms of how this robotic hand would be used to approach this fruit and pick them. And we're also working on improving the way these mechanical hands are operated so that we potentially could improve the efficiency in detaching this fruit so that we don't pick as many branches with this fruit. As you can see in this slide, again, we have been adding this capability in the vision system to identify trunks and trellis wires more accurately, and also identify orientation of this fruit. I don't know if it is clear to you, but as you can see in these fruit that are colored, there is an arrow showing the orientation of the fruit, and that allows us to approach the fruit from a direction that would not interfere or that would not collide with the branches or other obstructions. I'll also talk a little bit about targeted second catch harvesting, which is a way of harvesting more than one fruit at a time. We also call it mass harvesting. A quick background in a few seconds. There has been a lot of efforts in shaking and catching fruit. For example, there are mechanical or mechanized solutions to harvest tart cherries and a lot of nut crops by shaking the trunk of the tree or the canopy of the tree with finger type shakers and catch the fruit underneath. But these kinds of technologies have been successfully adopted only for crops that would be destined for processing markets, such as making juice or jam, or for the crops that can handle mechanical impacts easily, such as nuts. Using those technologies for harvesting fresh market apples and even oranges and cherries have been still problematic, because we are sometimes damaging as much as 60–70% of the fruit with those kinds of technologies. So in my research program over the last 4 years or so, I have been developing this concept of what we call targeted second catch. What it does is that it grabs a small section of a small branch of a given tree canopy and applies right amount of energy, which translates into right amount of frequency, amplitude, and time of shaking these branches. And as you can see in this kind of a simplified diagram on our top right corner, the catchers can go right underneath where these fruit are in a multi-layer fashion, so that the fruit that were gently shaken off could be captured right underneath where they are, so that they don't have to fly several feet down onto the ground. This technique then can minimize the damage to this fruit substantially. As we can see in the next video, we have been using this kind of system over the last few years in Washington State using a research prototype, and we have been able to pick as many as 95–98% of the fruit in a tree for certain varieties, and we are keeping the fruit damage to less than 10% for a few important varieties. This is, I have to say that there is some varietal differences, but for some varieties, this technology is showing very good promise for commercial adoption. And we are really excited about it, and we're continuing this effort to further improve and potentially bring the damage rate a little bit down from 10% as well. Here is a quick video. If it plays, if it doesn't play, that's okay as well. Right now we're testing with 2 or 3 layers. However, we could increase it to 7 layers or 8 layers, as many layers as there are in this stage, so that those apples from the top would not have to fall that far. Anyway, let's switch the gear into a few other automated robotic technologies we're working on. One of those is around automated canopy and crop load management. We have been developing machine vision system, meaning again, imaging system and image processing system, including deep learning and other kinds of expert or machine learning systems, including expert system in understanding canopies, whether that be identifying where the flowers are or recreating the trees for identifying which branches needs to be pruned out. And then we're developing robotic solutions to go do something about it, depending upon what the operation is. For example, if it is robotic pruning, we have a machine system that we recently tested in the laboratory environment that has a capability to find where the branches are, identify which branch needs to be pruned out, and get there with a robotic cutter and cut those branches. As you can see in this video, it is slowed down for safety reason, but we can see the capability of this machine to identify branches, get to those branches in a right orientation, and cut those branches off. Again, every year in the winter, when these trees are in dormant season without any leaves on them, this process is repeated every year for all the trees in apples and cherries and some other crops. And we are going to test this machine in the field in the next couple of months. If it were not for the corona or COVID-19 pandemic, we would already have this tested in the field. Anyway, this is another area of our research and development that's continuing at Washington State University under my program. Another research efforts going on is on red raspberry cane bundling. I don't know if many of you know about this crop. This is a kind of a biennial crop. There are canes grown for 2 years. They fruit in the second year, and the second year canes are selected and pruned out. And then the first year canes are brought together and bundled into sturdy or firm canopies. And those canopies in the following year would flower and fruit. And again, this process is repeated. And to automate this operation, we have developed a machine that has a machine vision system to find out where these individual canes are, bring them together using a mechanical system, and then tie adhesive tape around them, again, to create sturdy canopies where these canes are not lying on the floor anymore, so that the fruit quality would be much better when they fruit next year. And then it allows for mechanical harvesting system to go through these canopies and harvest the berries. Here is a quick video on that. Continuing with other automation robotics projects, just as introduction, we are also working with wine grapes. We are developing both machine vision system and automated robotic systems to perform a few things in wine grapes. One of those is to identify cordons in this early growth stage in vineyards. As you can see in these images, as the shoots start to grow, the cordon, which is the horizontal structure, horizontal permanent structure of these wine grapes, becomes occluded, increasingly occluded. And as you get to fourth week here, pretty much entire cordon portions have been occluded by leaves and shoots. And our effort has been there to identify the structure and estimate the location of these horizontal permanent structures, which then allows us to develop an automated machine, which was also tested a few weeks ago. I didn't get time to include that in this presentation, but we have developed a prototype of an automated system that would follow the trajectory estimated here to perform a few things. One of those would be to remove some of these shoots, which is called green shoot thinning. This operation is important in wine grapes because if we leave all the shoots that are growing in a wine grape canopy, we would be fruiting more quantity than desired to produce quality wines. That's why farmers every year send manual crew to remove a portion of these shoots. And we are trying to develop this automated machines to do the same with the machine. And it could also be used for automated pruning, which happens during winter season, and a few other things that might happen in wine grape orchards, wine grape vineyards. This is just a comparison between the manual and automated identification of those cordons. We have been using unmanned aerial systems or drones to do a few different things, to perform a few different aspects of farming. One of those is chasing away birds. Bird is a big problem in wine grapes and blueberries and cherries and some varieties of apples. And we are developing this technology to automatically find where birds are and then send this drone to the direction of these birds and interfere or intercept their flights. Or if they're already on the ground, we would just go over where they are and make some noise and do some random flying so that these birds can be scared away. As you can see in these graphs, there is a substantial difference between when we fly these birds and when we fly these drones versus when we don't, in terms of how many birds are there in the field.
Dr. Manoj, sorry to interrupt you. There are a lot of questions people have. In India, they're starting stage, so they want a lot of information from you. I would recommend you that another 3 minutes, if you can conclude, so we can have question and answer. I think we need that help from you, please.
Great, thank you. So this is my last slide about the research, maybe one more slide, and then I'll spend a minute talking about a few future things, and then we'll be done.
Okay, thank you.
So another project we're working on is called Smart Irrigation. In the CERT, we are using many different kinds of sensors and Internet of Things to collect many different kinds of information, put them together into a big data analytic environment, and use this approach to make decisions when and where and how much water is necessary, and use an automated system to apply water in wine grapes to starting with. That could be useful in any irrigated crops. We're also using similar approaches for applying nitrogen at a desired level depending upon the needs of individual plants. As you can see in this particular picture, collected on the same day from the same orchard, they have different leaf color, which indicates that they have different level of needs for nitrogen. And based on these kinds of information, plus many other kinds of sensor data, we're making a decision in terms of how much nitrogen to apply in a given tree, and how to apply and when to apply. With that, let me spend just about a minute or two here on potential future direction briefly, and then we'll stop there. I'm just trying to introduce how many different pieces in the past have come together, from mechanization, automation, and robotics and precision management together into a concept what we call smart or intelligent farming, or sometimes we are also calling it agriculture 4.0. In this aspect, artificial intelligence and cyber-physical systems have been making a big impact for us to achieve what we call more or better with less with this smart farming approach. The techniques in artificial intelligence, such as deep learning and expert systems, have been used to perform a few specific things, such as pattern recognition and machine vision and big data analytics, and decision support system, robotics. All these disciplines are developed or supported by artificial intelligence and cyber physical system. What it means for agriculture is then that we are able to perceive plant conditions, make farming decisions, and implement those decisions very effectively, and apply that to water management, pest management, canopy management, and harvesting, and a few other things that has to happen in the field in an efficient way, so that we can apply right amount of input at right time and right location to create more of the agricultural products. And this, I think, will continue in the future, and will have achieved our goal of achieving smart farming or autonomous farming in many different kinds of crops. I will stop with that for the sake of time, and also I almost finished what I wanted to say anyway. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Manoj. I think it was a very interesting topic for all of us to learn how the robots harvest, especially. There are some questions I have here. Before that, I'd like to remind the attendees as well as the panelists, you can raise your hand. Actually, if you don't know how to do it, you go right side bottom, there is raise hand symbol, so I can see, and then I can call each one for the questions. In between, I have got some few questions here to me come from other sources. I would ask the questions. There is somebody from Hyderabad, Lakshman. He has asked a question: how the harvester identifies ripened fruits and detaches only ripened fruits? Dr. Manoj.
So when it is robotic harvesting, it is not that difficult for the vision system to identify or estimate the color and size of the fruit, which are the primary visual indicators of ripeness. So this is relatively simple. However, quality is also dependent on internal parameters, and ripeness is also dependent on internal quality parameters such as sugar content and what is called Brix, which is basically the combination of sugar and acidity in this fruit, which is currently mostly done destructively, meaning farmers would go to the field and collect a few samples and kind of make a decision whether the plot is ready or a given block is ready for harvesting or not. But then also there are kind of proximal sensors using hyperspectral or multispectral signatures to detect internal quality parameters, which could also be included in these robotic picking systems, which we have not included so far. Let me spend another 30 seconds talking about the quality or ripeness for second catch harvesting, which is the most difficult challenge that we are facing actually. We are trying to apply right amount of frequency and amplitude in this secking mechanism. These are linear secking mechanisms. As you can see my hand, if I use different frequency and different amplitude, we have some indication that I might be able to harvest only the ripe fruit and then don't detach the unripe fruit. And if we repeat that process a few times over the harvesting season, we should be able to harvest ripe fruit selectively. But this is just a hypothesis. But then I have to add this. For a lot of commercial varieties in the state of Washington, generally fruit ripe together. For a lot of varieties, we pick them together anyway, even with manual harvesting. But for some varieties, we pick 2 times or 3 times. But for other varieties, we pick only once. In that kind of varieties, ripeness is not a big deal because we can identify this plot is ready and go harvest everything.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Manoj. There is some attendee, Mr. Sharagoda. Can you enable him speaking, please? Mr. Sharagoda, you can talk. You can ask your question now. You're hearing me?
Dr. Manoj.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Many people are interested, these young, researchers, that how should they start? Because this what you have done, you have shown, but how they should start the research? Where is the technology? How they should go ahead? So little bit time if you can spend, because many of this is the technology as we have been asked that we should work on it, but how to go ahead? If you can, with your experience, if you can tell us.
Sure. I think basic training certainly is important to work in any areas of research and development we would like to work on. For robotic or application of robotics and artificial intelligence into agriculture, I think some background education has been helpful particularly for me. If I talk about my example, my experience in computer science and machine learning and remote sensing technologies as I was doing my undergrad and master's degree has been instrumental in bringing those technologies, at least understanding how and what that means, and then creating this application environment in agriculture for those basics to come play its role has been instrumental for me. So there is some of that aspect, but it doesn't mean that any agricultural engineers with not much experience in machine learning, they are still able to apply these kinds of technologies into agriculture, particularly now because of some of the advanced machine learning techniques such as deep learning, with a lot of libraries available from Google and other companies that allows us to develop these kinds of solutions rather quickly, actually, with a limited understanding of the inside algorithms. But I think to be successful, creating a multidisciplinary team within your research environment, I think, is crucial. It has to have agricultural engineers like us, and if we can bring in expertise from computer science, who knows much better about machine learning and machine vision and expert systems and things like that. And then as important or even more important is to bring horticulturists or crop scientists who know about the plant, because if we develop our technology from just the engineering perspective, we might be just trying to solve a problem that is not there, or we might be just trying to solve a problem that's not practical. So I think creating this multidisciplinary environment where we can bring perspective from multiple different directions into these problems and creating a system solution rather than just an engineering solution, I think is important. Certainly, writing successful grants has been another aspects of no matter what we do. I think that's true in India, certainly very true in the United States. These transdisciplinary teams have been also helpful in creating competitive and meaningful grant proposals that then could be successful in getting these federal or state grants to continue supporting our labs, both in terms of facilitating them, getting equipments, getting students, as well as then completing the research objectives.
Thank you, Dr. Manoj. I see Dr. C.R. Mehta has a question. Can you please, C.R. Mehta, repeat the last question? Yeah.
Dr.
We
Manoj,
take
I
this as
have
last
one
question.
question. You have mentioned about 2 types of robots for harvesting of apple. One is like pick, pluck, and drop. Another one is targeted shake and catch. I think the second one, targeted shake and catch, will be having more output per unit time, and that may be having more potential for acceptance at commercial level. What is your opinion?
I totally agree with you. Actually, when I began that route, there were a lot of questions, and some questions were something like kind of a analogy to when we have Tesla now, why we are going to manual cars that were popular 80 years ago or 40 years ago. But I think even in the countries like US with relatively modern orchard architectures, robotic picking is challenging for certain varieties. For example, red delicious apples, which are sold for like 70 cents a pound, using high tech for that kind of crop, commodity fruit with affordable cost might still be challenging. For crops like Honeycrisp and Cosmic Crisp, that was a newer variety created here, which are sold for like $4 a pound or $10 a kg, robotics perhaps is better suited there. Anyway, my hypothesis has been that there are certain varieties, certain canopy architectures, certain geographic regions where one technology might be more appropriate than others. And that's why I'm trying to push both of these types of technologies as much as possible. Certainly managing funds to do research in a way competitive technologies is not easy, but my hypothesis is that these are not competitive technologies, these are complementary technologies, one being more suitable in certain situations than others.
Thank you, Dr. Manoj. I take
Thank
Dr. Dr. Gajal Singh has some question to ask.
Karkee getting up early in the morning, making a presentation at 5:30. Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you. It's not a problem at all.
Thank you. I think we'll stop the questions now because next presenter is there. I think thank you, Dr. Manoj. Like Dr. Gajal Singh told, I think we can really appreciate, and we would love that you help more. We'll call you on specific topics. You help us to have the robotics starting in India with youngsters. Thank you, Dr. Manoj.
Thank you really very much for this opportunity. Really great to be here and to share what we're doing. I know some of you might have seen this, most of it, not everything certainly, but most of it in my presentation about a year and a half ago, maybe. In India, some of you might be attending other seminars. Sometimes the content is similar. Hopefully you are not too bored, but for those who are new, hopefully it made some sense.
Thank you, Dr. Manoj. We have now we have the second speaker, and this is about for especially aimed at the engineers who are youngsters. What is problem solving, with an example of case studies in agro processing engineering. And this will be presented by Dr. Narendra Shah, who is in IIT Bombay in Sitara, and right now he's visiting faculty in IIT Bangkok. Narendra Shah has completed his BTech in Maharashtra and Masters he has done in IIT, and a PhD from France. In PhD he has done in process engineering, and he has been instrumental actually to establish Sitara in IITB, because I know him from that moment, from that time. And he has been doing a lot of work on rural development, especially that's very important for us here. And I should add here, this particular webinar would not have happened without him. And another point I will add credit to him, this particular, my comeback in agricultural side in electronics, the second time, which happened now is because of him. So this will keep it for some other time to talk. I think time is short. I would request Dr. Narendra Shah to come and say, please.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So good evening to the friends who are in India, and good morning to the friends who are in the other part of the world, in US. First and foremost, I would like to thank